Nursery and greenhouse production is one of the largest and fastest growing segments in U.S. agriculture and was the fifth largest crop commodity group. In 2022, a study showed that Florida's nursery and landscape industry generated $31.4 billion in sales and over 266,000 jobs. This is a 14.5% increase statewide from 2015. How did nursery crop production become such a significant U.S. agricultural industry? How did the industry adjust to the changes in national, technological, and societal frontiers? I'm Dr. DeBusk, and this video will focus on a brief history of the nursery industry. The American nursery industry undoubtedly began in Massachusetts Bay Colony, where the settlers grew young fruit trees as part of the general farm operation. The first major commercial nursery established in the United States was the Prince Nursery, also known for many years as the Linnean Botanic Garden at Flushing, New York. In 1737, William Prince started by cultivating a few trees to landscape his property. His success led him to commercial production, and shortly thereafter, he published a catalog listing several hundred varieties. From it were stocked nearly all the grafted apple, cherry, and pear orchards of New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. Prince Nursery continued for over a century and introduced many outstanding foreign plants to the New World. By 1827, it contained over 100 species of plants from Australia alone. The nursery also experimented with plant breeding and introduced a number of new selections. As a result, its catalogs during the first half of the 19th century were considered the best in the trade. Horticulture graced Florida before Europeans. We see wisps of it. Archaeological remains of cucurbit and pepper seeds, and native agaves and papayas, probably brought from afar. In 1881, 18-year-old Pliny Reasoner left his father's farm and extensive nursery in Princeton, Illinois, to settle in Aneco, Florida, and pursued his fascination with tropical horticulture. In 1885, with his brother Egbert, he issued the first Reasoner Brothers Royal Palm Nursery catalog. The Reasoner Brothers Nursery was, until 1997, the oldest continually operating nursery in Florida and was famous for the introduction of palms, pink grapefruit, loquat, mango, kumquat, avocado, lychee, and many other species into Florida. However, the earliest plantings of horticultural crops in America most likely accompanied the establishment of St. Augustine in 1565 when the Spanish introduced Mediterranean fruits, most notably orange, pomegranate, and fig trees to what would later become the state of Florida. The Soar brothers, John, Victor, and Francis, followed the railroad to Miami and founded the Soar Brothers Nursery there in 1897. The three brothers took up exploring for plants around the southern Everglades and Miami area. The Soar Brothers Nursery made two especially prominent introductions to horticulture: the Paratus palm and the Boston fern. According to legend, the fern went from the brothers to Boston, where it acquired its name, and became the main indoor foliage plant of the era. Growing tropical ferns in heated northern greenhouses cut profits. In 1912, a smart Ohio greenhouse clerk had the idea of producing the fern cheaply in its native environment in Florida. Harry Usler came from Springfield, Ohio to Orlando and initially worked as a hotel waiter. A hotel guest helped the young entrepreneur launch a fern business in an old pineapple facility. Later, Usler and his brothers started the Usler Brothers Nursery in Apopka as the first large foliage operation there. Soon, the leatherleaf fern joined in, and those two species dominating the Apopka foliage industry until approximately 1930. What were these settlers' motivation for starting their nurseries? What would be your motivation if you started a nursery? Pause the video and think about that for a minute. You may have first thought money, but also these early settlers had something special to introduce to everyone. In these cases, it was new fruit trees or plants during a time when people wanted or needed some variety. They also likely enjoyed the act of growing plants and being outdoors, so they were passionate about the product. If you start your own business, that is what you have to think about. You need to show your passion through your product, but you also need to know your customer. What would you be known for? For the nursery industry, 1912 was a significant year. the first National Plant Quarantine Act was passed, and parcel post went into effect. The Plant Quarantine Act prohibited the importation of certain plants into the country. And Plant Quarantine Number 37, effective in 1919, created a favorable economic situation for American growers by severely restricting plant imports. In fact, American nurseries soon found it necessary to import skilled propagators from Europe. Passage of the Parcel Post Act paved the way for the rapid development of the mail order business, which is still a huge business. Have you ever seen these movies where everyone was in horse-drawn carriages and most of the goods were shipped by railroad? Imagine trying to get trees and ornamentals to add to your landscape. It wasn't as easy as it is now, where you can go to your local Home Depot or garden center to get what you want within an hour. When the horseless carriage arrived in the early 20th century, and as better roads were built and more people could afford automobiles, growers also started creating retail outlets and garden centers for customers to buy plants. The development of national highway systems in the mid-50s and 1960s brought about another major change in the shipping of nursery stock. The turnaround time was quicker and cheaper, so trucks were able to pick up plants at the site of production and deliver them to the point of sale, or where they would be planted into the landscape. This eliminated the double and triple handling of plants shipped by railroad, which drove up costs. This also pushed growers to begin specializing in the plants that grew well locally, since they could balance their catalog with plants from other sources. During the 1950s and 1960s, the total number of nurseries declined almost 50% in the 10 leading nursery states, although the total acreage in nursery stock in 7 of these states increased. The 3 states, Florida, New York, and Texas, showed a decrease. What caused all these changes? A big one was a change from fruit tree production to ornamental plant production. But the nursery industry in the United States also experienced major changes in its methods of production. Before the development of the U-blade, as shown in the photo, imagine that root pruning and digging bare root plants needed 6 to 14 teams of horses with 6 to 18 people to drive the teams and operate the equipment. Machines have gradually replaced animals and reduced the need for hand labor, increasing efficiency. The introduction of hydraulic power made the development of mechanical planters, tree diggers, lifting and load equipment, and high-speed packaging and potting machines possible. A hydraulic tree spade, operated by one person, can dig and lift in a matter of minutes. A 20 to 40-foot tree with a soil ball 5 feet in diameter. It's amazing how far we have come. The development of selective chemical weed control agents, improved pesticides, and slow or controlled release fertilizers also changed cultural practices significantly. Advances were also made in irrigation of nursery-grown plants. In the later part of the 1950s, drip irrigation was introduced into the nursery industry and in the production of container-grown plants. In the mid-1960s, trickle irrigation was introduced into field production of shade trees, which resulted in faster growth and more compact root systems. The computer was introduced into the nursery industries in the late 1960s as an office machine to aid in managing financial data and processing of orders by large nurseries. Personal computers now control irrigation systems based on local climate conditions as well as lighting, ventilation, and indoor temperature for effective production of nursery-grown plants. They are used to obtain hourly weather updates from radar to track major changes in the weather that could influence work schedules or permit time for damage control in the event of severe storms. With technology and better products, the loss of plants is reduced, and there is a greater efficiency with reduced costs. But the most pronounced change in the industry was the large-scale production of container-grown plants. Although the systems of growing plants in containers was known for centuries, it was not adapted to large-scale production of small plants until after World War II. The system allows growers to grow, ship, and market their plants in the same container. It lends itself to a high degree of automation and eliminates the need to dig the crop just prior to sale. Although this is only a brief history of the nursery industry, it evolved in time to become where it is today. It is these early entrepreneurs, as well as advances in legislation such as the Plant Quarantine Act and Parcel Post, and technology that has created more demand for product and efficiency. Nurseries often are a family business, as you see with all these brothers involved. Because it is often a family-run business, if there are no one in the family to run it, nurseries, especially smaller ones, sell their business to another company. We need more people interested in doing the nursery business to keep up with this growing area.